cute. That's my first multimedia introduction. Okay. All right, I have a cheat sheet too, because this is an intimidating format. The clock is ticking. I want to tell you about my first time, because everybody remembers their first time. I looked all over to find a picture of a model of my first compact fluorescent light bulb. I had just been appointed to the commission in Texas and had bought a little house in Austin and wanted to walk the talk. So I got out my Real Goods catalog and started looking for mail order compact fluorescent light bulbs. And I settled on the by the way, this is a story about how this light bulb ended up costing me about $100. So I settled on the $35 table lamp model. It came with an adapter a converter. You had to plug it into the wall, and you had to plug the lamp into that, then you had to screw an adapter into the socket, then you had to buy an exercise hoop, then you had to put that light bulb into that, and then you could operate it and begin saving energy. It was astounding. So $35 plus shipping, plus the hoop, plus then my wife needed the socket for vacuuming, so she unplugged it and then plugged the lamp directly back into the wall. The light bulb went boop, and then there was another $17 to replace it. That was my first. I waited after that, and we went for the screw-in types with the built-in ballast, obviously. And Pam put me on a diet of, I think, 1 or 2 light bulbs a month until I eventually got the whole house retrofitted. But what I learned from that wonderful experience is that first costs do matter, because I don't think I've ever finished paying for that light bulb in savings. And second of all, the user experience is pretty serious when it comes to energy efficiency. So what I think and what I want to talk to you about is how energy efficiency is ultimately personal and human. And in the end, I think our energy efficiency policy will be better, and we can make it better, and it'll be easy to maintain if we keep in mind that there's a personal side to our use of energy efficiency. So I want to take you through a few stories, and let's go to this next one. So here's me, brand new armored cavalry officer, 19 years old, Fort Riley, Kansas. My dad came up, put his uniform back on after being out of the Air Force for a couple of years so he could give me my oath of office. And I became a second lieutenant, a butter bar as they call them. You see, I didn't even have the thing pinned onto my collar at that time. First I had to take the oath, then I got it pinned on, then I got saluted by the first NCO, gave him $1 and a silver dollar, and became an armored cavalry officer. After I got my light bulbs going at the house in Austin, we lived just down the street from my parents. And I got more and more of these light bulbs, and of course what came along with that was a user experience. I was teaching my children to turn off the lights. So turn off the lights and convert to compact fluorescent light bulbs and saving energy. And I remember one day sitting at the dinner table, the kitchen table where we all gathered at my parents' house, and I was recounting with pride the story of how I had been retrofitting my lighting and teaching the kids to turn off the lights. And you have to understand the setting here. It's the kitchen table, hardly ever used the formal dining room, of course. Nobody ever went into the formal living room. I don't even know why we had that room. But that's where all the good fights, arguments and late night game playing happened. It was on that table. And so there I was, explaining to Dad how smart and how wise I was getting, and he looked at me like I had come in from another planet. And he just like, I don't get it, I don't understand you, how did I fail so badly as a father? So we probed a little bit, and it turned out, my mom even got in on it. We probed a little bit, and it turns out that my dad remembers, first of all, my grandfather's favorite shopping grocery store was the Piggly Wiggly in Del Rio. My dad remembers when his dad hung a light bulb in the house on Pafford Street, and then when his dad built their first house with in-wall wiring, so they had electricity all over the house. And my dad used to run around the house when we were kids telling us, turn on another light. Now, he's a Mexican-American kid in Del Rio, Texas. He's got a macho thing working against him anyway, but he's also providing for us. And we never had to think about the light like he had to think about the light, because he was taking care of us. And there I was After all that good upbringing, unable to provide my children with the comfort and ease of turning on as much and all the lights they would need. It was a profound realization that this energy efficiency thing was personal and that you got to come at people where they are. I will tell you that later he finally retired from his second job, and he said, hey, tell me about those lights. So he's a big believer now. Your frame of reference matters, obviously, and personal values are what drive you to energy efficiency decisions or can block you from them. So let me take you to another story. This is not my house, but it's a picture that looks almost exactly like my house in Austin. Shortly after we moved in, we had one of those wonderful spring microburst hailstorms that you get in Austin, where just one little neighborhood will have all its roofs destroyed. Mine was destroyed as well. It was kind of a shame because we wanted to replace our air conditioner, and the house, to be honest with you, was kind of a pig. It was not built to be very efficient, and the light bulb was only the first thing I needed to do. I was extremely frustrated, but luckily I had a chance to plug into the Green Building Network, and I ended up talking to some folks who said, hey, you might have a win-win situation. Well, one thing led to another, and instead of just putting straight up asphalt, we put these strips up, although we ran them vertical. We put a metal roof on the top of that thing with the cool ply, the radiant barrier facing up, because that house didn't have any attic. And it only cost me a couple $100s more. Better yet, when the Austin Energy Certified Air Conditioner Specialist finally came out, we had to have an audit, came out to figure out what kind of air conditioner I could get and how much rebate I'd be entitled to. We discovered that I no longer needed a 5-ton unit. I could go down to a 4-ton unit. And the savings and the capital cost were paid for by that metal roof with that clever idea that a green building expert had given to me. So what did I learn there? Well, obviously system costs are what really matter. And at the right moment, you have to have access to the right expert in order to make a good energy efficiency decision. The next one has to do with a temporary boss I had when I was at Austin Energy. I won't say Robert's name out loud, but it was, he was the sort of the consummate bad boss, timid, political in the sort of creaky kind of way, uncertain, insecure, which makes the worst of all kind of bosses. And it was a tough time in Austin when the economy was down. I had a couple of things going on. I had just secured some money, a lot of money from the federal government to do energy efficiency. We already had energy efficiency programs going on. But even worse, the city council had passed the ECAD ordinance, a disclosure ordinance that required all our apartment buildings to get an audit. And then for the 10% worst apartment buildings in the city, they had to participate in all of our energy efficiency programs at the utility once they were identified as energy hogs. So here I was, a down economy, a number of apartments that were going to get forced to do energy efficiency savings, and a tight economy in the city in general. Well, sure enough, the boss came through and said the city manager is going to demonstrate his fiscal responsibility, and we're going to take a 10% across the board budget cut, and that includes you, Karl, all your energy efficiency programs. So I'm thinking about now, I can't do this multifamily thing, or the program's going to be cut back. I got apartment owners threatening to evict poor people because they're running energy hog apartments. I've got a politically inept and boss who doesn't understand the value of energy efficiency. We got to work. We got to work. We went to the water department. We found out that in small studio apartments with electric water heaters, 2 flow reducers and a high efficiency shower head could reduce electricity costs by 6%. Thank you, Better Buildings Program, for supporting that research. We also found out that we're using the most cost-effective programs available. Energy efficiency did not need an owner contribution in those apartments to be cost-effective. So I could reach out to those apartments, especially the low-performing ones, and find cost-effective savings and completely bypass the split incentive problem. Then all I had left was my boss and his budget cut. I put it together in a table. I showed him that how he saved this year on the budget cut would cost us, the city, 4 times as much the very next year when I didn't achieve my megawatt targets. And I activated a network of people who somehow made it known that keeping our energy efficiency budgets in place was a good idea. I learned from my personal engagement with that boss that sometimes a little bit of pressure is a pretty good way, a pretty good driver for being innovative. And I also learned that for our utility, I could make the case with numbers and practical engagement that energy efficiency was a resource. Okay, last story, and I got tipped off to this because of rural electrification. This actually goes back a little further when I first started as a public utility commissioner in Texas. And what happened was, I was approached by a couple of staff members, Danielle Jusseau and Steve Benenson. There was a conference being held by NERUC on low-income energy efficiency. We could go if we could get a paper submitted because NERUC would provide funding support for the travel. So their idea was they wanted to go to one of these conferences, and if we could just come up with a paper idea, we would. They introduced me to a concept that has stuck with me to this day. They called it universality. They explained that in the early days of telecommunications, there's a rationale for extending telephone systems out to rural homes, farms, distance from the city, sparsely populated neighborhoods. And it's based on this concept of universality. The kids here will recognize it as the concept of network effects. The idea was that if you could actually get a phone out to the farmer's house or to that rural house, if that farmer wasn't feeling good that day, they could just simply call the doctor, get some advice, and find out whether or not one or the other of them had to make the long trip to get some medical attention. And that the societal benefit of that connecting that customer to the network paid for itself in those broader societal savings. I've already talked about system benefits, but the lesson here is that we really are all connected. Some of the savings are harder to get than some of the others. This network effect thing works for low-income energy efficiency and small residential energy efficiency and multifamily energy efficiency, and even for that damn light bulb that I bought so many years ago. It works if we go after the little bit of savings with diligence, with innovation, and if we remember that we all have something to contribute at a very personal and human level. And at that same level, we're all very much connected. So those are my stories. I hope you have stories that ground you to this fundamental understanding that our energy efficiency, our policy breakthroughs in the future will be stronger if we remember that it's personal, it's human for all of us. Thank you very much.